Welcome to the Elevating La Cultura podcast, a space where I talk with Latinas who are passionate about what they do and are willing to share that passion with others to change the narrative, especially for the next generation. Each season is centered around different topics, but all with the Latina perspective. Welcome to season 11, where I'm talking all things finance. I'm so excited to share these powerful conversations. So vámonos, and let's get into it. Araceli is the founder of Narvaez Financial Solutions, a virtual bookkeeping and payroll firm that supports small business owners with clean books, accurate financials, and a peace of mind. Through her work, she empowers entrepreneurs, especially within the Latina community, to better understand their numbers and make confident, informed decisions. Her mission is to help business owners build sustainable, thriving businesses through financial clarity and support. Please enjoy our conversation. Hey, I am excited for this whole season, and I am just so grateful for my next guest as we close out the season on finance. So before we get into it, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hi, I'm Araceli Narvaez. First of all, thank you for having me on here. I am the owner of Narvaez Financial Solutions, a bookkeeping and a payroll firm. We help small business owners, primarily women and BIPOC owned businesses, to help them get their finances organized and, you know, have some clarity with their numbers.
And what inspired you to pursue this career in finance? Like, were you always like a numbers girl?
Actually, no. I was always interested in finance. I initially was interested in personal finance, but my career was actually in architecture. And it wasn't until I was getting burnt out. It just didn't feel like the career for me anymore that I finally pursued that, little inkling of like passion for finance that it finally grew into something. And like I said, personal finance was the first thing I was doing, with budgeting and things like that. But um, it was really having my mom be the owner of her own business. She's always had that entrepreneurial mindset of always trying to figure out what business she could start. And she started her own daycare, and just the finances of her daycare, like she didn't understand them. And I really, I'm sorry, I really wanted to help her. And so I got into bookkeeping, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about how I could help her understand her numbers, because like a lot of business owners, she had no idea what she was bringing in after all the expenses. And just giving her that clarity was super important for me. And so being able to help her with what a profit and loss is, and what a balance sheet is, and what goes in which report, and why they're so important for her business to continue scaling, and just for overall like peace of mind. So, a lot of businesses don't have that peace of mind when it comes to their finances. And so um that was definitely what urged me towards going into business finance, and what led me to start bookkeeping, and starting my own business for bookkeeping.
So she was like your first client.
Yeah, helping her helping her with her finances definitely was she was definitely like my first client. And then also my husband also started his own business, so definitely he was, all my practicing was done on that. And just being able to help them, and learn from other bookkeepers to know how to help them better. Um, that was definitely something that was super important for me and in my whole entrepreneurship journey.
So when did you make the switch from your career in architecture into owning your own business as a bookkeeper? And what did that look like? Like if you went to school for architecture, how was the support of your family when you decided to transition out of that?
Yeah. It was definitely a tough thing to go through. I went to school for architecture for 5 years. I got a bachelor's degree and master's degree, and I was in it, but it for some reason just never really felt right. And I started kind of moving towards finance. I want to say back in like 2019, 2018 is when I started, wanting to transition out, and I didn't actually fully move out of it till 2021. Um, so that's when so in 2021 is when I got all of my training and just, looking up courses to learn more about bookkeeping and finance and all of that. And so in 2021 is when I started my business, but I didn't fully leave, architecture until like 2022. So it was kind of transition. They overlapped. And my husband has always been very supportive of me, and so during that transition out of architecture, he told me to do what I felt was right. And if I didn't think that architecture was it for me anymore, then it just wasn't it for me anymore. And so he did kind of, support me through it and all that imposter syndrome of what am I doing? I went to school for architecture. Why am I leaving? But he was super helpful and encouraging throughout the whole process. My parents took a little bit longer for them to come around. But they accepted that if it wasn't for me, then I just wasn't gonna be able to go back to it. And so I still keep in touch with a lot of my old coworkers, but even they know like I'm not going back. So, but it was definitely difficult, to get out of or to change that mindset of um, this is, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing um, to be able to say, yeah, you know what, like I need to shift, and that's okay.
That's amazing. It's always really like it makes things a lot easier when you have that support from
Yeah.
friends, family, and it kind of like propels you and hypes you up to say like, okay, yeah, I can do it. Especially when
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like those that anxiety or imposter
Hmm.
syndrome thoughts like kick in when other
Oh
people
yeah.
sometimes like that's why I think community is such a huge thing because like if you're going it on your own, you can really spiral with your own thoughts and your own like doubts. But
Hmm.
if you got other people like encouraging you and pushing you ahead, like then you kind of like um feed off of their excitement and good energy and good thoughts
Hmm.
and you're just like, okay, yeah, maybe I can. Maybe I can.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the, when I first started this, our transitioning and then getting into like finance and wanting to start my own business, my sister was um, the only person that I, aside from, my mom and my husband, that had a business and was running it. She would do pop-ups and, would sell a lot of, cards that she would make. And candles. And so she actually encouraged me to join the Abiga Hood. Um, and when I joined, I was able to connect with so many other business owners that either were going through the same thing as me or were feeling the same way with that imposter syndrome. And Tita Zuleta from Cafecito con Jefas, she was the one um, that helped me so much with also getting rid of that imposter syndrome. And he did my branding for my business when I first started because I told her, you know what, like I don't know what I'm doing. I want to have a website though, and I have no idea how to run a business. I kind of have seen other people, but I've never done it myself. Um And I told her that her branding was kind of like brand therapy. So it helped me so much um, to be able to just kind of like move forward. And she was so encouraging. And I joined her community, for the Cafecito con Jefas, and just being surrounded by all of those amazing entrepreneurs and Latinas that understand what it looks like to start a business and all of the, hardships that come with it, has definitely been really helpful in just being able to move forward. It's always a safe space to be able to go back and say, you know what, like I had a bad time. And then they're just so encouraging, um and yeah, definitely having community, I feel like, is the most important thing to being an entrepreneur.
Yes, I love Gita and her
Hmm.
community. It's so strong out there in
Yeah,
California and around the across the country too.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'd love to dig a little deeper for people who have never worked with a bookkeeper or
Mhm.
are just starting in their entrepreneur journey or finance, getting locked in on
Mhm.
finances. Um, what kind of services does a bookkeeper provide, and what do you help with throughout the year? I know that we just are getting out of tax season, and
Mm.
I'd love to be proactive for
Yeah.
people for next year, so that way it's not like at the end of the year it's like, oh no, I haven't done anything, what do I do?
Yeah. So tax season will be ending in like a week. And so I think first and foremost, if anybody who shares this tax season ends, then extension if you're not busy. Um, but a bookkeeper, what we do is we help with organizing our business's finances. And so I work exclusively on QuickBooks Online. And what we do on there is we have all of the transactions from a bank feed that, connect to the client's bank account. And so we'll take care of categorizing those to their appropriate accounts to make sure, at the end of, a month or at the end of the year, the reports, the income statement, and the balance sheet will show the the amounts that go towards a specific account. And probably just probably break it down a little bit just to make sure that your money is going into like marketing, or if it needs to go into rent, that the numbers are right and that you're not misplacing um, any money that could potentially lead to either you having to pay more taxes for duplicate income, or for you, missing out on tax deductions. Um, so it's important to have all of that organized properly so that you get the max benefits come tax season. And so the types of services that I provide are, monthly bookkeeping or ongoing bookkeeping. Sometimes some clients prefer to just have quarterly. And so, I try to work with them as much as possible. I also do catch ups and cleanups so that if anyone is falling behind, we'll work on going back to a certain period of time and just get them up to speed and ready. And then for cleanups, if somebody DIY'd or somebody else did the books wrong. A cleanup is important to make sure that those errors are not going to show come tax season, and so that they're fixed and the numbers will look correct. And then for businesses that are just starting up, I would more suggest training. So what I know, a lot of business owners that are just starting off, they want to be a little bit more hands-on. They want to understand their numbers a little bit more, or they don't think that they're at a point yet where they should hire a bookkeeper. And that's okay. If they're not ready yet, then that's totally fine. But um, getting a little bit of training on how to DIY their books are, I think, would be the best way to go. And so I do also offer training on QuickBooks Online, and it's more like basic training to teach them how to, how to maneuver around QuickBooks Online, or how to deal with, what happens if you accidentally duplicate an income. Like, what do you do there? How do you fix that problem? Or how do you manage invoices and make sure that they go to a correct product or service? And so, just helping with that beginning stage, I feel like is super important, because um, that'll set them up for success, down the line. And something that I like come across a lot is, business owners wanting to DIY their bookkeeping, but then it's tax season and there's so many mistakes and they don't know what went wrong or when. And so then they have to pay a bigger fee for a cleanup. And so I definitely encourage starting entrepreneurs to do some sort of training to just be able to avoid that huge fee when it's tax season. And everybody's in a rush to get everything out so that they can hit that deadline.
I think a lot of times, like for new entrepreneurs, it's that mindset shift of
Hmm.
from personal tax season to like business tax season. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I didn't know like that I need to separate my
Mm-hmm.
expenses, or like I didn't know any of like these tax deductions, or like just learning the basics, because a lot of times like we start our business just because we're passionate about
Yeah.
something, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, oh, I could form an LLC or form like an entity, and then we don't know like where to go next, or like how to organize next. And so for those people that are just starting out, like what is one thing this year, like if you're a new business and like you just went through tax season, um, what's one thing that they can start organizing or thinking about when moving forward with building a business?
I think definitely getting their accounting process set up correctly, or as set up as much as they can, either through spreadsheets or through a software like QuickBooks Online. There's also Zero. Um, Anything to just get that process set up, I think is super crucial. Because you want to be able to stay up to date with, your expenses and your income, um, so that, at the end of the year, you're not falling behind. And just keeping track of, your receipt. Um, I highly encourage everyone separating their business finance from their personal finance. There's always a lot of commingling with starting businesses. And well, if you don't have a bank account, you kind of sometimes have to like mix your money a little bit, but it's super important to just separate everything as fast as possible to avoid, any liability for your business falling back into your personal money, or, your some assets. Um, I think that would be super crucial. And then those receipts, save them so that, um, in case the IRS decides to audit, you have that proof of what your expenses were and what your income was. It's just the best way to protect yourself. And I think, starting businesses or even like small businesses, we sometimes forget that we need that protection, because we never know when, the IRS is gonna, try to start an audit, or if you need a loan and you need to grow, like you still need to, have everything set up correctly.
I think something that is common within new entrepreneurs, and myself included, when I started like figuring out all of these new new things that I had to do when I started my business, there's a lot of fear that
Yeah.
comes in of doing the wrong thing. And I just experienced that recently when opening an IRA account. I was like, I'm scared of clicking the wrong button or like doing the wrong thing or putting it in the wrong place. And
Yeah.
another thing is that like these are new expenses that are like tied to your business, like
Hmm.
hiring someone to do the books, or even like just getting software like QuickBooks or other accounting software. And then it's like, okay, well, if I set up an entity, then I have to pay, and like there's just
Hmm.
extra expenses. But
Yeah.
in the long run, it is a wise thing to do for
Yeah.
protection. So
Hmm.
how do you like walk your clients through understanding like the yes, it's extra expenses, but they're kind of like a necessity if you're starting a business?
Well, I think I just I just let them know that it's important to have them set up properly so that they can benefit from that in the long run. I know there are bigger expenses now, but um, there's that whole liability thing, you need to be protected. And, as small business owners and as Latinos a lot, we, we need to be protected so that, any assets that we have or any personal income that we have is also still safe from, any lawsuits or things like that. Um, and so what I like to tell my clients is, it's just for protection that you need that. It's just like insurance, you need to have insurance to protect yourself, but you also need to have your business set up properly. If you don't have that set up properly, there's so many things that could go wrong. And it's sure like it sometimes, we're scared of doing something wrong, but I think that's why there's all these professionals that can help guide us along the way, right? And so, there's tax advisors, there's insurance brokers, there's a million professionals that can help us if we need guidance or if we are feeling like maybe like the risk is too much. And so I think it's important for all entrepreneurs to know that um, in order to have a successful business, it needs to be set up properly and it needs to be set up right so that we can grow, we can scale, because at the end of the day, that's the goal, right?
100%. I think there's, like I said, a lot of mindset shifts that have to go
Mm-hmm.
on when you are a, a business owner or decide to start your own business.
Yeah,
And yeah, it just takes time and
it does.
learning.
Yeah,
And sometimes that fear takes over because you're like, as soon as you learn something new, you're just like, I didn't know that and I'm doing everything wrong. But I like to encourage people that if you are the first person in your family to be an entrepreneur or to like start from scratch or even like start a different type of business, because even like product based business is different from a service based business,
oh yeah.
and brick and mortar place is different from like running a business out of your house. And so if you're the first in your family to do something, like that's just an asset for your generation, because it's like, oh, once you know, like you're going to be able to pass that on. Just like you saw that entrepreneur mindset from your mom and family, and just like, oh, I can do that. And then with the support of the community, then it's like, oh, we can all do this. So yes, I encourage people to like lean into that mindset shift and understanding of we're not going to know everything, but that's why there's people out there that know things for you. So you can focus on what you want to do as a business owner. I'm wondering, like, is there anything in your business and as you were building a business that you didn't expect to experience, but you were able to like go at it head on and overcome that challenge?
Well, imposter syndrome was like the biggest thing. That was my challenge. Um, and I think setting up boundaries, not just with, other people, but, you know, myself and clients. Um, it was definitely something that I didn't know that at first I didn't know that I should be doing, but um, yeah, just after some experiences with a few of clients and other people wanting partnerships or things like that, I found that the best thing for me, for my state of mind, was to set definitely some like firm boundaries to, so that I could keep going forward. There's a few instances that caused me some anxiety that um, I later realized would have been completely avoided if I had, set those boundaries in place. And so I think that those that has been my like my biggest learning lesson that I'm taking away, and I'm definitely encouraging a lot of business owners to set those boundaries, um because it's definitely important for us to be at peace with the things that we're doing, and be able to keep moving forward without being filled with like anxiety or stress, and so um I think that that's definitely been it.
I love that. I feel like we don't talk about boundaries enough as Latinas, as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and it's been a game changer to just give yourself permission to focus on what you need.
hmm yeah, yeah, it's super important because um we're always trying to help others, but at the end of the day, we can't do that if we're not in a good place, emotionally or mentally. And so I think it's super important to first take care of ourselves in order to be able to servicing others and helping them. And so that's what, I think is super crucial. And, especially given some, like we're also have our own personal lives outside of our businesses. And so, you know, things happen and sometimes we're just not able to, be there, fully 100% for others because we do need to take care of ourselves. And so I think it's super important to be able to do that and to acknowledge that, if we're not doing that, what do we need to change in order to get to that point? Um, but yeah, it's something that we don't really think about a lot.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that. Okay, where can people find you or work with you? And do you work with people like across the country?
I do. So I'm actually located in Long Beach, California, but I am able to work with, business nationwide. I do virtual services, and so we can meet through Zoom or, Google Meets, whichever way. But people can find me on Instagram. Um, and LinkedIn, Instagram, it's Narvaez underscore financial underscore solutions, I think. And yeah, and then my website, narvaezfinancialsolutions.com, to book a call, discovery call if you want to work with me. And I think those are it.
Yeah, all of that will be in the show notes. I suggest any entrepreneurs who are needing help with bookkeeping and organizing numbers, like get on it early so that way you're not at the end of the year or at the beginning of next year trying to figure out where you're going with your expenses come tax season. Okay, so last question is what small piece of advice would you give um, to the next generation when it comes to their finances?
So when it comes to their finances, you know, just, don't be scared. Sometimes the numbers can look scary, but um, little by little, all numbers tell a story, and so you just want to be able to understand. And it can look scary at first if you look at, the big picture, but just baby step, baby steps, and you'll be able to understand it, and it's going to be so much easier.
I love that. I love that you said all numbers tell a story. Because I think it ties into your business, and
Mm-hmm.
like every financial decision has an emotion or a meaning
Yeah.
tied to it, and it's something that we don't necessarily think about. But I feel like if we're trying to build holistic lives and a holistic business, it's important to understand how your purchases, how your um, collaborations with other businesses are telling the story of your
Mhm.
life and your business, whether it's personal or in entrepreneurship. So, I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I'm so excited for this whole season, and I'm so glad that we were able to get you on this season. I know we connected a lot, like a while ago. I've been following you for a
Mhm.
while, and when you said that you were part of Gita's group, I'm pretty sure that's where I met you like years ago because I was
Probably. Yeah.
part of the co-working group, and then I got like
Yeah.
super busy during the week and haven't been able to make it to a co-working session. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I know that we're like a 2-hour difference, and
Yeah.
I just appreciate your willingness to share on this season.
Course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've been following your podcast for a while, and I'm so glad to be a guest, and super honored to be on here. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's definitely, amazing.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, if I'm ever in California, I will let you know and we will meet in
There's a
person.
lot of us here, so definitely pop in.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, and we will talk soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Please rate and review this podcast so we can get more ears listening to these stories and can continue elevating la cultura. You can also comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they resonate with the stories that I share. So feel free to take a screenshot of this episode and share it on Instagram and tag at Elevating La Cultura. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening. Y nos vemos next week for the final episode of season 11. Bye.